President Biden calling his handling of the Afghanistan withdrawal, quote, an extraordinary success. He says his administration evacuated the majority of Americans who wanted to leave. Listen to this.
90% of Americans in Afghanistan who wanted to leave were able to leave. And for those remaining Americans, there is no deadline. We remain committed to get them out if they want to come out.
The White House later corrected that number from 90 to 98% in the transcript of that speech. But here's Biden's new slogan. We only leave 10% of Americans on the battlefield. Joining me now, Virginia Congressman, Armed Services Committee Vice Ranking Member Rob Wittman. Congressman, your reaction to what you heard from President Biden yesterday?
Well, Dagan, it's astounding that he would in any way, shape, or form say that this was successful. Think about it. He capitulated to the Taliban. He let them set the deadline. He went against what he promised earlier in saying that we would leave no American behind. I cannot imagine anybody across the land looking at this and saying, yes, that this was a successful effort. Think about it. The Taliban now has $83 billion worth of our military equipment, much of it advanced military equipment. They have more Black Hawk helicopters than Australia. We have completely given up our ability to gather intelligence on the ground in Afghanistan on terrorist activities. And now we have to operate at long, long distances if we are to pursue counterterrorism operations. Dagan, by any measure, this is an absolute failure on behalf of the president in trying to keep, I believe, American interests safe within that region of the world. I think we're in a worse position today than we were prior to 9/11.
And Congressman, you're now co-leading a legislation with House Republican Chairwoman Elise Stefanik to establish a 9/11 style commission on examining the Afghanistan, particularly the withdrawal. Tell us more about that.
Well, I believe we need to have a full vetting of the facts and the truth. We need to hear from people other than the Biden administration on exactly what happened, what has transpired through the years, what led to this event of chaos that we see in this withdrawal. Why did we allow the decision-making to, I believe, allow the Taliban to lead us and not do what's in the best interest of this nation? The American people deserve to know, and we deserve to know for two reasons. One is to make sure that this never happens again. But secondly, and most importantly, is we need to hold people accountable. The decision-making that took place here was terrible, and I want to understand who made the decisions and why were the decisions made this way, and to hold people accountable for what I believe is horrible decision-making and putting Americans at risk. 13 American service members died here. I believe those deaths were 100% preventable. I want to understand how we find ourselves in this position and make sure we hold this administration 100% accountable.
I've said for weeks now, it seemed clear to me that President Biden's strategy was purely based on an end result that would allow him to have a public relations victory, take a victory lap, if you will, on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and that meant no troops. So that's why you saw that drawdown of troops before they got, down to a few hundred in the country, before they got Americans, our allies, our friends, our partners, even diplomats out of the country. It was kind of blank backwards, as we would say in Virginia. And now we find out, so it is about perception. There's a transcript that reveals, and this is according to reporting from Reuters, back in July, President Biden was pressuring then Afghan President Ghani to give the perception that the Taliban wasn't winning. This is according to Reuters, but here's what Biden said. I need not tell you the perception around the world and in parts of Afghanistan. I believe that things aren't going well in terms of the fight against the Taliban. And there's a need, whether it is true or not, there is a need to project a different picture. That's horrifying.
It is, Dagan. It's all about, I believe, this being a political decision. This was not a decision about what do we do from a military standpoint to make sure that we had an orderly and safe withdrawal. This was about achieving a political ends. And that, to me, is unbelievable that we find ourselves in that situation. But it's very apparent to me that that's what drove the administration. They were all about getting the military out first. Think about this. Since when do we now say we're going to get the military out first and we're going to forget about the other elements of what we have in the country? That is U.S. citizens. That is Afghans that have helped us. This was reverse. They got the military out. Think about this. In the middle of the night, with 600 Americans left at Bagram Air Base, the next morning they disappeared. And then the Afghans look at that, and then you want to instill confidence in the Afghans by completely abandoning them? I mean, this is at every turn an absolute colossal failure, and it's all politically driven. If this was about doing this operation in the right military way, that is strategically and tactically correct to make sure you keep Americans safe and that you do things based on conditions on the ground, it would have been done completely opposite of what happened.
Right.
But this was 100% politically driven, and that's why we find ourselves in the situation we're in today.
And now it's such a foul up that the Democrats, including Nancy Pelosi, don't want the names read of those fallen service members, those 13 who were killed serving their country. Joseph Pinion, jump in.
Yeah, I mean, Congressman, I mean, this seems like an unmitigated disaster. When you look at this, you talk about this being a photo op, and I think I would tend to agree they wanted it. If we have a Congress that wants to investigate what occurred in Lafayette Square, said that President Trump holding up the Bible was somehow some type of political stunt. What is it now where we have the President of the United States effectively acting as if the Americans who were left behind are to blame themselves, as if somehow they stopped at a Starbucks on their way to the airport, which is clearly not what happened. They're literally hiding for their lives in fear of death from terrorists who have taken over a nation we spent 20 years and $2 trillion trying to prevent from becoming the beachhead for terrorism it has actually become.
Exactly. The Democrats do not want transparency on this. They don't want any of this mentioned. They want to be able to push this aside to get on to other things that have, I believe, nothing to do with what's right from a military standpoint for this nation. I mean, we're going to be starting the National Defense Authorization Act today about making sure we're properly outfitting our military for the future. We have folks in the Democrat Party that want to make massive cuts to our nation's military. They don't want to mention the colossal failure there in Afghanistan. They have a completely different vision for where this nation goes, and they believe by not mentioning this, that this automatically goes away. I can tell you, as I talk to folks in my district, and I know it's the same across the nation, I've talked to hundreds of veterans who are just angry about what has happened. I've talked to military families whose loved ones are on active duty that just cannot believe that this is where we are as a nation. And the Democrats want to completely move away from that. They want to weaken our military. They do not want to do the things necessary to protect this nation. They want to completely deny the events of the past month and what's happened in Afghanistan to move on to these other progressive issues, things that have nothing to do with making this nation stronger. In fact, I would argue have everything to do with making this nation weaker.
For years to come, potentially. Congressman Rob Wittman, thank you so much for being here.